Hello everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to discover how Truong secretly prepares an early Tet at home, buying a scarf and flowers for Tieu, learning to cook for her and Dui, and turning their little house into the happiest place before the holiday even arrives. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next videos. The next morning the air feels softer, still cool but no longer sharp. Pale sunlight slips through the cracks of the door and warms the small room like a thin blanket. Tieu wakes up to quiet sounds from the kitchen. Soft footsteps, a drawer opening, something being placed down carefully. She sits up, ready to call out, when Truong appears at the doorway. He lifts a finger to his lips with a playful smile. "Shh," Truong whispers. "Tieu, sleep a little more. Today you just sit." Tieu blinks, confused and amused at the same time. "Truong, what are you doing?" Truong steps closer and gently pulls the blanket higher over her shoulders, like he's afraid she'll catch a chill. Today Truong wants to make an early Tet for our home. Tieu's eyebrows lift. "Early Tet?" Truong nods seriously, like it's an official mission. "Yes, Dui always says, Tet has candy, and Tieu..." His voice softens. Tieu deserves to smile more. Truong promised Grandma. No heavy work for Tieu. Before Tieu can protest, Dui sits up on the bed like a spring. "Tet! Candy!" Dui shouts instantly, eyes wide. Tieu bursts into laughter. "Dui, you're awake already?" Dui rubs his eyes and nods hard. "Dui, go, Tet! Dui, eat candy!" Truong chuckles. "See, he only remembers candy." Dui points at Truong like he's correcting him. "Grandma give Dui candy." Tieu leans down to smooth Dui's messy hair. "First, Dui, wash your face and brush your teeth. Then we do early Tet." Dui jumps off the bed, then suddenly pauses and looks at Tieu's belly with serious curiosity. "Baby, go too?" Tieu smiles softly. "Baby's inside Mum, so baby goes." Dui's eyes widen. "Wow, baby riding inside Mum." Truong laughs quietly, but his gaze stays gentle. He looks at Tieu, her tired eyes, her steady strength, and feels gratitude rise in his chest again. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. They don't have much, but Tieu still prepares a small bag. A few oranges, some tea, a scarf for Grandma. Truong takes it immediately even though it's light. Tieu reaches for it. "Truong, I can carry." Truong shakes his head. Truong carries. Today Tieu walks slowly and rests. Dui jumps in like a tiny commander. "Dad carry, Mum slow." Tieu laughs. Okay, you two team up against me now." Truong gets ready to go to the market early. He finds the old basket, tightens the handle, checks it twice. Tieu follows him to the door, one hand holding her sweater. "Truong, the market will be crowded, be careful." Truong turns back with a calm smile. When Tieu stays home, Truong feels safe. Tieu bites her lip. "Then let me go with you." Truong shakes his head. "No." Tieu stays. Truong will buy quickly and come back. Dui stays with Mum. Dui immediately makes a face at the word stay, but Truong squats down and gives him a new mission. "Dui," Truong says, "you stay home and help Mum hang the lights, okay?" Dui blinks. "Dui hang lights?" Truong nods. "Yes, your dad's assistant." Dui's chest lifts with pride. "Dui is assistant." Tieu can't stop smiling. "All right, go carefully, Truong." Before leaving, Truong reaches for Tieu's hand and squeezes it gently. He doesn't say much, but the squeeze says everything. Then he walks out. The market near Tet is always noisy and colourful. Truong stands in the middle of the crowd with one simple list in his head. Something sweet for Dui, something warm for Tieu, and something small that makes the house feel like Tet. He buys a few fruits, a couple bags of candy for Dui, and then stops at a flower stall. He doesn't choose expensive flowers, just a small bunch of red blooms that look bright and alive. He holds them for a moment, imagining Tieu's face when she sees them. She'll probably say it's a waste, but her eyes will shine anyway. Truong buys them. Then he pauses at a scarf stand. Not fancy, Not costly, just soft, warm, a colour that feels gentle. Truong remembers how Tieunu's hands get cold, how she tries to hide it by tucking them into her sleeves. He buys the scarf too. Finally, Truong stops by a small decoration seller. He doesn't need much, just a simple red hanging piece and a short string of lights. He hesitates. Is this durable? The seller smiles. Durable enough. The important thing is, when you hang it up, you feel happy. Truong swallows. For some reason, that sentence hits him right in the chest. He nods. Then I'll take it. He walks home faster than usual, not because he's rushing, but because he feels something rare. Excitement. Like he's bringing home a small miracle wrapped in ordinary things. As soon as Truong opens the door, he hears Dewey laughing. Mum, Dewey hang! Tieu is sitting on the chair like Truong told her to, but she's still holding the string lights, giving instructions like a gentle boss. Dewey, a little higher, yes, like that. Dewey is standing on a chair, too risky. Truong steps in and immediately lifts Dewey down. Dewey, Truong says, trying to sound strict. Dad said no climbing, Dewey giggles shamelessly. Assistant must climb. Tieu laughs but looks worried. Truong, I told him. Truong sets Dewey down and points gently. Assistant's job is to hand things to Dad, not to climb. Dewey pouts. Dewey hand. Truong ruffles Dewey's hair, then turns to Tieu. Good job. You're resting like you promised. Tieu glances at the basket in Truong's hands. What did you buy? Why so much? Truong smiles like he's keeping a secret. Early Tet. He pulls out the red flowers first and places them carefully in Tieu's hands. Tieu freezes. Flowers? Truong scratches the back of his head, suddenly shy. Not expensive, but the colour? Truong thought Tieu would like it. Tieu brings them close and inhales softly. Her eyes instantly turn wet. Dewey sees her expression and panics. Mum! Mum cry? Tieu forces a smile. No, Dewey. Mum is happy. Truong looks at Tieu with quiet warmth. Truong wants Tieu to be happy. Then he takes out the scarf and places it gently on Tieu's lap. It's cold in the mornings. Tieu's hands get cold. Tieu holds the scarf like it might disappear. Truong, Truong doesn't let her drown in emotion. He turns to Dewey and pulls out the candy. Dewey, Truong says, assistant completed the mission. Reward. Dewey screams happily. Candy! Truong raises a finger. Only one, then rinse your mouth. Dewey nods fast. Dewey rinse! Tieu laughs through tears. Truong, you're strict and sweet at the same time. Truong smiles. Truong is learning. They start decorating. Truong hangs the lights near the doorway. Dewey stands below, passing clips and giving loud instructions. Dad left, Dad left. Truong tries not to laugh. Okay, Dad knows. Tieu sits and watches with one hand resting on her belly, her face slowly brightening. The house is still small, still simple, but now there is warm light, a red decoration, and laughter that fills the corners. Truong plugs the lights in to test them. Half of them glow, half don't. Dewey squints. Lights. Sick. Tieu laughs softly. The lights are tired. Truong kneels to adjust the wire, then says quietly as if it's a promise. Half light is still light, as long as our home is bright. Tieu looks at Truong, her heart tightening from happiness. At noon, Truong cooks. Nothing fancy. Simple soup, stir-fried vegetables, and Truong's specialty, fried potatoes. Dewey stands nearby like a tiny inspector. Dad, careful. Tieu smiles from her chair. Dewey is just like me, always worried about Truong. Truong stirs the potatoes and speaks without looking up. From now on, Truong will cook more. Tieu rests. Tieu opens her mouth to protest out of habit, but Truong's serious expression makes her stop. She simply nods. Okay, she whispers. I rest. When the meal is ready, the small table looks different. Red flowers in a cup, warm lights near the doorway, Simple dishes that feel special because Truong made them. Dewey sits in the middle, candy already finished, and keeps chanting like a celebration. Tet, tet, tet. Truong sets his chopsticks down and looks at Tieu for a long moment. Tieu, Truong says quietly, "Thank you for giving Truong a place to come home to." Tieu's eyes shine again. "Truong, I'm the one who should thank you." Dewey raises both hands dramatically. "Family!" Truong laughs and lifts his cup of water. "Family!" Tieu lifts hers too, her voice trembling but bright. "Family!" Outside, the real Tet is still days away, but inside this little home, Tet arrives early, through cheap flowers, a warm scarf, half-working lights, and a Truong who is learning to love with actions. And Tieu realizes happiness doesn't always come as something big. Sometimes it's simply being chosen, every single day. After lunch, Dewey is so excited he can't sit still. He bounces on his heels, circling the table like a tiny whirlwind. "Dad! Dad! We decorated! We ate! Now what?" Dewey asks, eyes shining. Truong wipes his hands and pretends to think very seriously. "Now, the assistant has a new mission." Dewey straightens his back. "Mission?" Tieu laughs from her chair. "Oh, Truong is giving missions again." Truong leans closer to Dewey. "We're going to make a small gift for Grandma, because Grandma blessed our family, so we should send her something back," Dewey gasps. "Gift for Grandma?" Tieu's expression softens immediately. "That's a good idea," Truong nods. "We don't need something expensive, just something with our heart." He pulls the oranges Tieu packed earlier from the bag and places them on the table. Then he takes out one of the small red decorations he bought and holds it up. "We'll give Grandma these oranges," Truong says, "and we'll add a little decoration so she can hang it too." Dewey reaches for the decoration carefully, like it's treasure. "Dewey give." Tieu watches, eyes gentle. "Grandma will be happy." Truong looks at Tieu. "Tieu, can you write a short note?" Tieu blinks. "A note?" Truong smiles. "Yes, something simple. Grandma likes your words." Tieu hesitates, embarrassed. Tieu doesn't know what to write. Truong squeezes her hand lightly. "Just write what you feel." So Tieu takes a piece of paper. Her handwriting isn't fancy, but it's warm. She writes slowly while Truong and Dewey watch like they're witnessing something important. When she finishes, Truong reads it quietly. His eyes soften even more. Tieu asks nervously, "Is it okay?" Truong nods firmly. "It's perfect." Dewey tilts his head. "What Mum write?" Truong smiles at him. Mum wrote, "Thank you for loving us. We will visit again soon. Please stay healthy." Dewey nods seriously. "Grandma must healthy." Then he adds quickly, "And Grandma must give candy." Tieu bursts out laughing. "Dewey!" Truong laughs too. Okay. We'll add one more line." Dewey says hi. They pack the oranges neatly, tuck the note inside, and tie the small red decoration to the handle. The gift looks simple, but in their hands it feels like a symbol, like their family is growing roots. As the afternoon light shifts, Truong notices Tieu rubbing her lower back. He immediately stands. "Tieu, are you tired?" Tieu tries to smile it off. "A little. It's nothing." Truong shakes his head gently. "No, it's something. Come, sit properly." Tieu is already sitting, but Truong means it differently. He brings a small pillow and places it behind her back, then kneels to adjust her sweater so it covers her shoulders. Tieu looks at him, half amused, half touched. "Truong, you're acting like I'm going to break." Truong looks up, serious. "Tieu is not weak, but Tieu is carrying our baby. Truong has to be careful." Dewey walks over and places his tiny hand on Tieu's belly. "Baby, careful too." Tieu's eyes water again, happy tears this time. "Yes, baby, careful." Truong stands, then looks around like he's suddenly remembering something. "Wait." He walks to the small shelf and brings back the scarf he bought. He wraps it gently around Tieu's neck. Tieu's lips tremble. "Truong." Truong clears his throat, almost shy. It matches you. Tieu laughs softly through tears. It's just a scarf. Truong shakes his head. No, it's warmth. Dewey claps. Mum warm, baby warm. They all smile. In the late afternoon, Truong takes Dewey outside for a bit so Tieu can rest. Not far, just the small yard and the path in front of the house. Truong kicks a small ball to Dewey, and Dewey squeals like it's the greatest gift in the world. Dad! Again! Truong kicks it gently. Again! Dewey runs, laughs, falls onto the grass, then stands up again like nothing happened. Truong watches him and feels something settle deep in his chest. This is what he wants. Not a perfect past. Not a complete memory. This. From inside, Tieu watches them through the doorway. Her eyes look softer than they have in a long time. When Truong glances back and catches her watching, he smiles. Tieu raises her hand in a small wave. Truong waves back, then calls out, Tieu, stay inside, don't stand too long. Tieu rolls her eyes playfully. Yes, yes, boss Truong. Dewey hears boss and laughs. Dad boss, mum boss. Truong laughs too. Okay, then Dewey is boss too. Dewey jumps proudly. Dewey boss! As evening comes, the lights they hung glow warmly in the doorway, half bright, half dim, but beautiful in a way that makes the whole house feel softer. Tieu sits at the table resting while Truong prepares dinner again. This time, Tieu truly doesn't get up. She only gives small instructions from her chair. Truong, the salt, a little less. Truong nods like a student. Yes, teacher Tieu. Tieu laughs. Stop calling me teacher. Dewey runs in and points at Truong dramatically. Dad cook! Dad cook! Truong sets the bowls down proudly. Dinner is ready. They sit together again. Tieu, Truong and Dewey in the middle like always. Dewey looks around at the decorations, the flowers, the lights, and suddenly his face becomes very serious. Dad, Dewey says, today, happy? Truong's chest tightens. Yes, Dewey, today is happy. Dewey nods, then looks at Tieu. Mum happy? Tieu's eyes shine. Yes, Dewey, Mum is happy. Dewey looks at Tieu's belly. Baby happy? Tieu laughs softly. Baby is happy too. Dewey sits up straighter, satisfied with his work. Good. Truong watches Tieu smiling and feels his throat tighten again. He reaches across the table and gently holds Tieu's hand. Tieu, Truong says quietly. Thank you for trusting Truong. Tieu squeezes his hand back. Thank you for choosing us. Dewey raises his cup of water again like he's leading a ceremony. Family. Truong lifts his cup. Family. Tieu lifts hers last, her smile trembling with warmth. Family. Outside the wind shifts, cool but gentle. Inside the house glows with half-working lights and full hearts, and for Truong it feels like a miracle, because the miracle isn't big or loud. It's simply the way Tieu smiles when Truong tries. It's the way Dewey laughs without fear. Tieu feels safe, Dewey laughs, and the baby seems to rest peacefully. It's the way their little home feels like Tet, even before Tet arrives. Truong wakes up early and decides to create an early Tet for his family, insisting Tieu rests while he takes over. He goes to the market and returns with simple joys: red flowers, a warm scarf for Tieu, candy for Dewey, and a small string of lights. With Dewey proudly acting as his assistant, Truong decorates the doorway, making their modest home feel festive. Truong then learns to cook, carefully frying potatoes and preparing a comforting meal so Tieu won't get tired. They pack oranges and a handwritten note as a heartfelt gift for Grandma. Later, Truong plays ball with Dewey outside while Tieu watches, smiling. As evening lights glow, they share dinner again, hold hands and raise cups to one word: family.